Welcome to the Dosha Diaries, where ancient Ayurveda meets real, messy, modern life. Let's dive deep, stay grounded, and bring a little more wisdom and wholeness into everyday life.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I
Yeah.
wanted to do, the goal with this podcast really is, it's called the Dosha Diaries, because what I wanted to do is when I come across people that I adore, that I find inspiring, that I feel that there's a story behind their healing journey, I love to share that. And that's why I created the whole Dosha Diaries, is to have a page of different people's diaries kind of put into a collective space so that we can share and other people can understand. So I invited you because instantly, it's been like what, almost 10 years we
Yeah.
established since we first met.
Yes, a
And
little bit of 10 years.
life looks completely different 10 years later as
Yeah.
life changes for everyone.
Yeah.
But there are certain people that you meet on your journey throughout life that are seasonal, come and go, and there are certain people that kind of just stick with you throughout a journey and you come and you go because we've, been in touch and not been in touch. But I know that when we met instantly, what I'm drawn to in people is their ability to connect on a human level. The realness that you had was so rare considering the work that you do, because there's such a stereotype with the
Oh,
work that
yes.
you do
Yes.
that
Yes.
instantly you're like, oh, okay, I have to do this part.
Yeah.
But
Here
you brought
come, yeah, exactly.
such a
Here
level of trust and human connection, that was so genuine. That's the word. You were genuine and had a genuine love for what you do and the well-being of the person that you're talking to, which was felt instantly. And I think that's for me where we connected,
wow.
and I enjoy the journey and always feel like you're a person I can come back to ask questions, or to feel like, okay, Victor will know the answer to this or what to do, or have some words of wisdom. So this is the reason why I invited you on here, is to share that energy that you have, the work that you do, and change the narrative around that so people can understand things that are meant to stress them out don't need to. And there are many reasons why what you do is necessary to relieve stress on people, especially nowadays, because there's um, so much verbiage about, getting your life together and getting organized, and this happens and that happens. All of
Yes.
those, and building a dream team. So before we jump in, because obviously people listening to it is like, well, what does he do? Like, what is he? What does he do? So,
What does he
um,
do? Yeah.
yeah. So what I want to do is, just because the bio that you sent me is perfection. So I just want to read it
All
and
right.
then unpack it as we continue on this journey of learning who Victor Levee is, if that's
Yeah.
okay with you.
Well, I first of all, it's hard to believe, but I'm almost speechless right now because of all of the nice things you said about me. But don't worry, I'll find the language at some point.
Okay.
So,
So it says, I started my insurance career in May 1979. It was a difficult transition to move from a world of selling tangible products to the world of purely intangible products. What became instantly clear to me was that my new path could have a massively important and positive impact on people's lives, particularly in moments of extreme duress. Insurance products are purely human. The challenge was to help people understand how essential my offering was to them. I had to make the intangible tangible. I knew it was important for me to have those difficult conversations in a way that would not scare, but rather empower those who I connect with. And to really achieve this, I learned that at first place I needed to start was with me. It's been an amazing journey so far, and 46 years later, what I do still inspires me, and I have no intention of slowing down.
Yeah, that's spot on. That's me, and I will tell you for the record that after having had a couple of conversations with you when you invited me to join this diary, this podcast, I sat and I reflected on my entire career and the journey, and I probably created that in about I don't know, 2 minutes because it came through me. What I do and the reason why I connected with you and the reason why I connect with all of the people that I end up doing business with is because of what comes through me. You have
Big,
to
that's
understand something. There's so many issues surrounding the insurance salesman and the image. I mean,
yeah.
it could be used cars, it could be aluminum siding, it could be
Yeah, not to interrupt, but could you for a second just explain what it is you do? So
well,
for anybody that's listening could be, well, what is it? What does he sell? What does he
well,
do?
what Vic sells is life insurance products, and those life insurance products are positioned as financial security planning tools. And the reason why I frame it as a financial security planning tool is that it's not a financial planning tool. We're not talking about investments. We're not talking about buying and selling buildings. What we're talking about in that aspect of my business, we're talking about making sure that there is an absolute guaranteed financial security associated with the purchase of my product, whether it's to protect a family, to pay off a mortgage. These are things that people would understand quickly. Retire a loan of some kind. Those are some of the things that financial security planning does, and it's super important that people understand the difference between a financial planner and a financial security planner. So I sell life insurance at the end of the day, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But it's important that people understand that I use the life insurance product. One aspect of my business is life insurance, and disability insurance and critical illness insurance as well. But I use those tools to create absolute financial security, not maybe, absolute financial security.
Yeah. Because I
So
think what we've recognized the older you get is you don't know what's going to happen. And I've seen other people in situations where things, no, that's not going to happen to me, or it doesn't
yeah,
happen to me. And when it does happen, it's like, oh, I should have had the critical illness. Especially working in the healing field and
yes,
having people come across diagnoses which they never thought would happen to them. And then with that follows the stress of having to pay certain bills, not being able to work, and reaching the point of, transitioning and, death being an absolute part of life, that it's inevitable. So why not prepare for the inevitable and embrace these products that help your loved ones or yourself when faced with the realities that are absolute in life? It's
that
not a
is
baby.
that is I will absolutely steal that because it's a great description of what I do, and I have often said that after my 46 years in the business, I have learned that the most important thing that I can do is explain perspective to people,
Mm-hmm.
because what you've just summarized is perspective. Some people learn realities and perspectives at younger than other people.
Yes.
Uh, my journey in this business was where I learned perspective, and it became very clear to me that what I was trying to do was transmit my understanding of the importance of keeping these things in balance and keeping perspective in balance about the security associated with the products that I had. And it was very difficult in the beginning because I was young. I was a gunslinger. I was out there, selling, and
So going back for a second, you said the first place I needed to start was with me. How would you describe that realization that you came to that said, I need to start with me? And what is it that you started with?
what happened was there were a series of events in my life before I got into the insurance business that were negative, I guess. They damaged my spirit, but I didn't realize the impact that these things had on me. I wasn't aware of my own feelings, and I struggled, and I didn't know why. And through a series of events that occurred when I was quite a bit younger, mid-20s, I fell into the insurance business. I never thought, who wants to be an insurance salesman? Come on, it's the last thing I thought of. And interestingly enough, I was introduced to the gentleman who became my first manager, because back in the day we were all associated with an office, and we had a regional manager, and that manager was like our boss slash coach. He said something to me that was it resonated with me, and he said, the one thing that you have to realize about the insurance business is that nobody likes you, nobody respects you, and yet at some point, everyone will thank you. So I jumped into the insurance business, and he coached me very, very well for many, many years. The most important experience that I had very early in my career, I'd been in the business, my goodness, perhaps a month or two, and my manager calls me into his office, and he hands me an envelope. And I'm thinking, okay, it's either a paycheck, a termination notice. What have I done now? And he said, that is a death benefit check, and I want you to go deliver it. It was a life insurance policy that turns out this lady's husband passed away, and he said, go deliver the check. So he gave me the address and the lady's name, and he said, she's expecting you sometime this afternoon. Okay. I went and I delivered the check, and I got into her apartment, and I said hi. I introduced myself, and I handed her the check, and I was sitting at her dining room table, and I leaned forward a little bit, and I handed her the check, and she took it, and she was trembling. And I said, are you all right? She said, that's exactly the way my husband used to sit at the table. So I'm young, and I didn't know how to deal with that. So I said, oh, I'm sorry. She goes, no, it's all right. And then I handed her the check. She had no idea how much the amount was. None. She was completely unaware of any of the programs that her husband had set up. And she opened up the envelope, and we were talking literally 46 years ago, and it was a $50,000 check, which was a substantial amount of money back then.
Right.
And we spent the next 3 hours discussing how this money could help her and how it could be used and what it should be used for. And I found myself, after I left, saying, wow, I just walked into this lady's apartment, didn't know her from Adam, or Eve, and I handed her a $50,000 check. And she said, she said, when I was at the funeral and after the funeral, I had to go to see the accountant and the lawyer to settle up certain things. And every one of them was very nice. And then every single one of them handed me their bill.
Mm.
And she said, you handed me a check. And so that became this one of the seeds that awakened something. A
That
moment.
is so powerful because it's a side that people don't see and think about, and that people don't talk about.
Oh, never, never.
Because there's such a guilt around receiving money or
Mm-hmm.
receiving a payment in um in the name of a passing.
Mm-hmm.
And there the narrative around insurance and what you do and healing and stress and having to make a living and work in life and the exchange of energy and money being energy and insurance being energy, how to utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I love this story because it is something that only provided help and love and healing and space for this woman to now embrace and grieve her husband without having to worry about all the stresses or burdens that she's left with.
That is exactly
And that's the
what
side that people
I
don't
did.
see on grief.
Yeah,
How can you alleviate the stresses so that someone can grieve
grieve,
properly?
grieve purely, and
Yes.
it is something that again you have to realize that saying that in the context of what we're talking about today, and hopefully the people who see this and hear this, uh, perhaps it will resonate with them a little bit differently. But the reality is, when the life insurance payment is made, what happens is the person or the who receives the money, regardless of the context, and there's different contexts that you can use life insurance in, it becomes easier for the individual to focus, whether it be on grief, whether it be on business continuation, whether it be on paying the bills, whatever it might be. They can focus on the things that are truly the most important, so that they can move on in a better fashion.
Yes.
And there are there are not a lot of people who understand the importance of acknowledging the the pain and the grief of death, and they don't recognize the the agony that is associated with it, that self-inflicted. So there's sort of a dichotomy of ideas here. It's like a conflict in a way, because you've got to be strong, but you want to grieve, but you can't grieve.
So I love when we have conversations because it goes in such directions of just bringing out healing in so many different ways of how important it is to change the conditioning and the narrative around the product that you can provide for people. And I know even with myself working towards bringing end of life more to more of an acceptance state, and there's a process of preparation because it's inevitable. Like it is so, it's
Yeah,
like, could you work in anything more concrete than that fact that we're all going to die at some point, and those around us are still going to be left there to deal with the aftermath. And grief and loss happens every day, all day, to
yeah.
everybody. What can you do to help alleviate stress along the way? There's such power in organization. And Victor's one of those people you want to go see to help you get organized with that.
Well, thank you. I think there's a massive misconception about the truth of the product that I sell. There's a gentleman, I will paraphrase, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist.
Love him.
And he talks. He's a great speaker, and of course, when you're a great speaker and you're very animated and you do things in a very effective way, you obviously attract two people: those that really respect you, and then the haters. So we're not talking to the haters today,
Yeah.
but he to resume, one of the most important things that I've ever heard him say is that in his life, I have recognized that there are three truths. There is personal truth, there is political truth, and there is objective truth. And the power of objective truth is that it's true, no matter what. That is powerful, but it has to be unpacked, because the danger in that quote is that, well, I think that this is a phone. Okay. Well, I think that this is a mug. My personal truth is that that's a mug. So the personal truth becomes confused and misinterpreted with the objective truth. And that's where it becomes difficult for people to truly step back and say, okay, this is a personal truth of mine, which you must respect completely. There are political truths as well. But now what we've got to do is move people to objective truth.
Yes.
And it's the objectivity that is very, very difficult to come up with and to create when we're having a discussion about things as profoundly impactful as death or disability or being stricken with a critical illness. And so what I try and do, and in every single conversation that I have, is create a safe space so we can have that conversation. Nobody wants to talk about that.
Nobody wants to talk about that. That's why I thought it was so fascinating to have this discussion here too, because already on an emotional level, it's difficult for me to even approach people like in palliative care and things like that about facing the end, that I can only imagine bringing forth a product like yours, the hesitance of people that the hesitance that people have in accepting this. So like for example, my job is like, okay, come help me emotionally deal with this and hold the space and transition properly. And the objective truth is you're going to die.
That's
And
right.
you have bills to pay. And who's
That's
going to
right.
have to pay for those bills?
That's
Your
right.
loved ones that you've left behind. That's an objective truth. And if you don't choose to receive that right now, you'll receive it when I'm dead. So you have to deal with that truth.
You're one of the reasons why I thought it would be such a good idea to accept your invitation to this discussion is the fact that you have a profound understanding and perspective of what I do without even knowing really what I do, because you have the palliative care experience. You have the, if you want to call it, the back end of what I do. You see that, and it's extraordinarily difficult for someone to understand palliative care until they've experienced it and participated, if you will, in that whole caregiving end of life atmosphere world that, I'm looking
Yes.
for the language
And
for
I
that.
see that. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not
No.
for everyone, because I see the hesitation in so many people to reside in that space of palliative care, of death, of end of life, of logistics, of pre-planning, and all of those things.
Yes,
Such a
yeah.
hesitation for it.
Now you're seeing it at the point where they can absolutely not avoid the reality. Okay. What
Yes.
I'm doing is I'm bringing it up 40 years
Way
before
before, yes, where they're
or
like, no,
30 years
no, I
before.
don't want to think about that now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as I've come along in my career, it's a lot less complicated. There's a lot less resistance when you talk about the need for insurance to someone who's 50 years old or
Hmm.
60 years old or perhaps who's a little bit younger whose parents has passed away. There's a maturity, an emotional maturity that comes with that understanding, with that perspective.
Right.
But you get it from the whole perspective of palliative care. And it's astounding how what you say and the way you say it and how you articulate what I'm doing is first of all, it's spot on, but it's coming from a whole different place because of your experience.
Mm.
And a tremendous amount of
Yeah.
respect for what you say and do and how you do it. And again, you're talking about things that people don't ever want to talk about. They're scared to get into their own heads. They're scared to expose their own emotions to themselves. You've got to be,
Yeah.
you've got to be in here with yourself first. And so you and I have the same challenge every single day. I got to go out and sell
Yes.
life insurance,
Yeah.
and nobody wants to talk about that. And you've got to go out and sell awareness, if you will.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to talk about that. And
Yeah.
sure as there's stars in the sky,
Yeah.
nobody wants to pay for
Objectively.
nobody wants to pay for that. And
Yeah.
but what they'd rather do is hand over money to somebody who's perhaps trained in the area of tax or trained in the area of investments, because they don't have to talk about
Right.
the reality, you know?
Right. The avoidance around death is what,
Exactly.
yes, it inhibits a lot of people from
Absolutely.
alleviating their stress eventually.
Exactly.
So,
And
yes.
the avoidance of that discussion has created a resistance to what I do and to what you do that is monumental.
Mm.
And the message has to be, we've got to get over that. We've got to step back. We've got to get into a space where we're comfortable enough to be able to talk about these things properly. There's nothing wrong. To be vulnerable is to be true to yourself. And then you can have those discussions, what you do, what I do.
I agree with you. There's such a misconception about vulnerability because it's thought of where being vulnerable means that you're lessening your power and putting your faith and your power in someone else, which is not the truth at all.
It's exactly the opposite of that.
Yes, the exact opposite of that. Okay, so let's jump back a little bit then, a little bit more into Victor. How would you classify what your journey has been like in terms of who you were before versus who you are now this far? I mean, you've been in the game now for almost 5 decades,
Yeah.
which is an accomplishment because you look incredible to say that I've been working in this field for 5 decades.
You know what? That's the first time I've heard that. Oh, I'm very proud of it, actually. I'm very, very proud of the fact that, I don't know how many people can say that they've been doing the same job for 46 years, you know?
Right? And so you can only imagine the amount of people that you've come across that you've been able to do over and over again to that lady that you brought the check to.
Hmm.
It
Oh, yeah.
keeps you in the field. There isn't a point where you say, you know what, forget it. I don't want to do this. I don't want to sell insurance to people anymore. This is terrible. This is horrible.
You know,
It's kept you in this
I
field.
have to jump on that because there was not one particular thing. There were I could have answered your question about the check that I delivered 46 years ago with 20 different examples, 30 different examples.
Yeah.
What it has been is a collection of experiences that I have been attuned to, that I have recognized and I've sort of stored them away in my emotional memory bank in one of the rooms of my house, for future reference. I didn't know I was doing it in the beginning. That was the thing that I think gives me, or that is the thing I should say, that gives me a massive advantage over everyone else, because I've been storing all of that stuff for all of these years. And now, as a person who has been plying this trade for so long, um, I now can speak of it and command respect.
Mm.
And that happens at a different time in everyone's insurance career, but it also happens when you have a connection with an individual. And if you look at anyone in my business who has ever been successful, moderately or wildly successful, the one thing that they have is a connection because they're able to command respect. And that's the difference. But it's an impossible question to answer for me to answer in term or explain, because it's not a one-hit wonder. It's an evolution. It's essentially maturity. It's life. And sometimes you figure all that out when you're in your 40s or in your 50s or in your 60s. It just depends. So it's cool when it happens. I'll tell you. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's affirming. It's affirming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very empowering.
Yeah.
I can tell you that because it's really quite cool. I am no longer reticent about saying, yeah, I sell insurance, and let me explain to you what that means. You know?
Yeah, that's why I love that it's presented in such a beautiful way, the way that you do it. But instantly, as soon as you come across you, you know there's such a connection that happens with you, and people feel that, and that's
Chandra, you know,
successful.
that's an interesting observation because it comes across, but the truth is that I I know that what I do is extraordinarily important. I believe that what I do from my heart is quintessential in the overall big picture of life. So, listen, what you do is extraordinarily difficult. What I do keeps you grounded, and especially if you love it. And so I stay grounded because of what I do and because I love what I do. And you stay grounded because you're very aware of yourself. And
I
I
love what I do.
exactly, of course, it's
I love what
very.
I do.
Now you see, I work with you, and I tap into the extraordinary insights and knowledge that you give me because I want to become even more aware. I have a giant size weakness, which is the fact that I'm very intense and very passionate, as you can see.
Yes.
Uh, and I have a tendency to bulldoze from time to time, most of the time.
But that is a positive quality to have as opposed to being closed-minded, because you could very well sit in the space of, well, I'm great at what I do, and I've learned so much, and more of an egotistical space, and you would have what some would say every right to do that because you're an expert in the field, you have experience, you've been around long enough to know what works, what doesn't work, and you could very well sit on a pedestal and say, well, there's nothing else I need to learn. But that's one of the things that I really appreciate you, that you come with a sense of humility and you come with a sense of wanting to learn and wanting to understand and wanting to be better and do better and see and teach and learn and absorb at the same time, which is
Yeah.
a beautiful quality to have. And it's not easy to come by a lot of people like that, especially when you already have your purpose. You've made your mistakes in life, but you also come at them with humility now. And I love that about you and the work that you do already, it being so challenging, has kept you grounded and humble
Mm.
at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
it's
with that, brings me into a question of going forward, tapping into all of that experience and space that you're in. What would be advice coming from Victor to somebody else who says, I don't know where to start? I don't know what to do to find my passion. Because people who have something and those that are seeking it will always come to somebody who has it and says, how'd you do it? How do I get it? What do I do?
that the most important thing that I could teach somebody or tell somebody or impart to someone would be that they need, if they're willing to say, if they're willing to admit that they're searching, okay, then that's a nice first step. But they have to have the courage to look inward first, because that's where the answers lie. It's not on an Instagram or a TikTok or whatever. That's not where the answers are. The answers aren't there. You talk about, again, you say we can't always change what's happening around us, but we can change what happens within us. That's your quote. I keep reading it over there because it's true. But that is the truth. This is where it starts. Okay? It starts in your soul, in your heart, right here. Okay? But what people need to do is realize that, okay, they got this. They know that they're looking for something, but then they have to have another bit of courage. They have to find somebody to help them walk through that, walk down that path and learn. And when I came to you and started talking with you, it was very evident to me that I could be trained and taught and coached and guided much more effectively than if I could try and figure it out on my own. But it's not de jour au lendemain. It's not from one day to the next you find these answers.
Yeah.
And the analogy that you gave me when we were speaking the other day about working out, and I row a lot and I exercise and I keep myself very, very fit. Well, what the process of what you do is just working out the mind, and it's training the mind, and it's a muscle in that sense. And what made you do easy, measurable for me, and tangible for me, and easy for me to understand is that I gotta work out that muscle more because it's not in good enough shape. And I recognized that it wasn't in good enough shape before, but I didn't know which exercise routine to jump on effectively.
Yeah.
So, the advice is, yeah, you got to have the courage to look inward, but it's a lot more difficult than people realize.
Yeah.
And
So I guess it would be to basically get a dream team.
yeah, and one of the you have to be able to connect with certain people. I have a wonderful dear friend of mine who she and her husband live in Ottawa, and I started working with Jane. My goodness, at least probably about 10, 12 years ago, and we started talking about. First of all, we connected instantaneously. It was great, just like you and I. It was marvelous. But Jane is I often refer to her as a life coach. Okay, she's just a really terrific human being, and uh, there was a lot of work that we did on mindset, and it it really, really helped me a lot in terms of putting all of the pieces together of this giant puzzle that I had been making, if you will, all my life.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where now the next step that I need to take is with you, because I now know that part of what my journey is going to be now is to take all of the stuff that I've gathered with Jane and now look even further inward. And that's why I need, the coaching and the insights and the training of my mind that you can give me.
Victor, I adore you.
That's just so sweet. Well, you are just amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing and being in such a vulnerable space and allowing me to have you on. Sharing the story, I think, is so important. I think a lot of people are going to get a shift in their own perspectives on, or kind of just going to like look back and say, hey, do I have life insurance? Who's this guy? We're going to try to find it. So wherever they're going to listen to it, they're going to have your contacts and how to reach out to you, because you know you're getting the real deal. You know that you're putting your life in a safe space when they come to you. And that's really, really
I
important.
do appreciate those very, very kind words, and I know that what I do is extremely important. But what I really wanted to help you do today was allow people to understand that there is much more work that we have to do on ourselves. I happen to use the medium of insurance. You are an Ayurvedic caregiver, if you will, but we're doing the same thing. And it's not so much sell insurance today as to allow people to understand that they need to have that courage to look inwards, and they need to have that moment of there's something percolating in there, and I'm not happy, I'm not satisfied, and I'm not going to go on the internet to look for a solution.
Yes, we are real people with
Yeah.
real tools.
Yeah.
And I exactly what you've said, for all of those that are ready to really recognize that there is one truth, that we are all going to die at some point. Those that we love are going to die at some point, and there's nothing wrong with it because it's inevitable. That there are tools that can help maximize the life that you have right now and alleviate stresses.
I have a line in my on my website, and it's your confidence secured. But what I mean by that is, I don't mean that you can be confident that when you're gone, the bills will get paid. What I mean by that is you put what you've got in place for the reason that it will free you up to be able to move forward confidently, take the risks that you need to take, do what you need to do, and know that you've got your own back.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this time. It was extraordinary.
Thanks for hanging out on the Dosha Diaries. Remember, your healing isn't a trend, it's your birthright. Trust your body, trust your timing, and take what resonates. If you want to connect with us, visit www.skylatayurveda.com. Until next time, stay rooted, stay real, and stay in your magic. Namaste.